Coming to the major figure, Ben Shan, who represents the blues actually. Many people associate his name with blues. Shan used techniques learned from Rivera. He used to work with Rivera for some projects, especially murals and panel paintings commissioned by numerous federal agencies. The 8 paintings on the theme of prohibition for the public works arts projects are really amazing. The one titled WCTU Parade, which is 1933 to 34, he took time to execute. That's the best known. His mural for the community center of the Federal Housing Development in Roosevelt, New Jersey, is the most typical. Shan's themes were a variety of topical problems, from anti-Semitism to unfair labor conditions. He framed them into a continuous wall plane that is subdivided by architectural devices. Though he borrowed the organizing motifs from Rivera, Shan's murals are generally more readable and less crowded. Less well known are his photographs for the Firm Security Administration. Typical is the one titled Arkansas Sharecropper's Family. Part of that mural. He started working as an illustrator with some agencies, and interestingly, when he got success in his painting and murals, still he used to call himself an illustrator and very successful illustrator. He found the illustration in newspaper and agency work is more powerful than a private studio work. Powerful in the sense to communicate with people. And so much experimentation with composition, with the space and figures. How effective that's work, when you see the blind accordion. And a few words about some instrumental stuff which came from African origin, that is banjo, came on the ships. But the guitar and harmonica were adopted from the whites, in America particularly. And eventually the guitar came to be the second voice of the bluesman. Instead of addressing an audience in a church or plantations and interacting with it, the black songster was interacting with his guitar. The blues became a dialogue between a human being and his guitar. The itinerant black songsters of the time of the Reconstructions, armed with the guitar, adapted the songs of the holers to narrative format of the British ballad. For example, John Henry. John Henry is very famous ballads. Many singers this. if you can just demonstrate a little bit the effect of banjo, such you can do that in guitar.
It's a technique that a lot of that's kind of seeped into even pop music now. We hear it in a lot of guitar players on the radio. It originally comes from the way the banjo was played. It involves a lot of right-hand dexterity. It allowed the guitar player to play around with time a little more without straying too far from his song form.
Something like that. This also in this composition from Benshan, which we use in the poster. You see that how that person with the scratch walking up, and the staircase, which is red. It's very meaningful. Very significant here. One more time, the walker's work. How it's relevant because they're associated with the fellow times with Benshan, sometimes with Homer, again Benshan. It's so amazing painting, but see, as I told you, there's less number of people, but more and more concentrating on the colors, the patchworks, and how it's more symbolic and not exactly expressionistic. Reference with Paul Gauguin and see how colors came from nature, but on the canvas it becomes a symbolic aspect. That's why he's the first symbolist painter. And he belongs to post-impressionism as such, and the works are completely different than others. Very philosophical. The last work of Paul Gauguin, where you can see we came from, where we come from, where we're going to go. So this kind of question there, the title itself like that. And the whole pensive mode, and which probably not reflecting any common phenomena or expression what we have usually. It's something else beyond that, which leads to a more spirituality rather. Benshan. So just showing this how Gauguin's colors influenced indirectly or indirectly to Benshan, and the crisscross red lines and the old couple sitting there. It's the quality of Benshan is unlike other painters that he worked more than the theme or just the documentations, and not just the technicalities, also the inner self, more colors, that visualization from inside, which is, I think, is the most successful exponent in this This is called Carnival. And you never seen a work like the Carnival is like that, which you don't feel like enjoying or something, but it's something aside from the enjoyment, some magnitude, and someone's sleeping or relaxed. So interesting that you're going up with that in a carnival, in a fair, in a mela, you can see that side, but our existence is so vague, it doesn't have actual existence. The reality is completely different. What we come back home and we realize that that was a kind of a different space we create. We make believe all the time we belong to that feeling, that space. And that's the way the whole journey, and I have a few more slides to go in which I probably a couple of some requests to do offer. And before that, just a few, and another exponent, Andrew White, who worked in sometimes environment, and I fortunately worked sometimes environment, and I visited his studio and his library and everything. It's amazing. The whole site is so serene, and I realized it how and why, and which is three generation actually artists, his father, his son, how they meditate. They're almost complementing, and all these areas, especially the New England, you can see this word, New England mud, that people don't like that. But in visual, you can see that you can lose this space. It's all sublimity, the whole quality, which is in the mundane life, you can found only possible through visual art and music. And again, coming from the group of people and community, more introspective, more towards the individual side, how White, started finding a new realism, with its meticulous attention to detail, was not purely documentary. In particular, his composition often employed skewed vantage points and perspectives, making his subjects seem a little uncanny or strange. And the strange perspective, coupled with painstakingly controlled brushstrokes, which are the opposite of expressionistic, create a type of realism that some critics refer to as magic realism. And during that time, basically the other part of Europe, something's happening. It's a great movement from one big artist happened just before the World War First, and also after that. But before First World War, Picasso was doing something in his blue period work. He was not aware of what's happening in America, probably that way. I'm not as such that musician's point of view or the artistic journey. But he started depicting the stories from the people's lives, and the people who were, they don't have shelter, so homeless people on the footpath, and the poor people. There's a huge series of work that it took place that in his career, which is very important. The early Picasso, and later on he moved to pink period, and then gradually the Cubism. So I would say that the great people, the great talent, they can touch the time wherever they belong to. Whether it's Europe, whether it's Pan American, whether it's American, whether it's Caribbean. Through music and art, they can see that they can sense the time. And that's the time the whole problem and the complex happens, especially in Europe and other sides, and the World War came. The first, and after a decade, the two, and gradually the complexity started. More you are in crisis, more you actually deal with your artistic experimentation. The Blind Guitarist, it's very well-known work. I just giving the references along with the clues. Now the iconic figure, as also our from initially we mentioned, that Edward Hopper, such an urban artist, and most of the works deal with the urban crisis and issues, and especially the personal problem, how we deal, and more we are getting into the individual problems, and we are detached from the society, yet we are part of the huge crowd, the big population, but we all are alone. It's like, an island, everybody is like separated. So that's quite well-known work, this one, very popular, Edward Hopper, and who died in 1967. The aloofness from the society, aloofness from your family, from yourself, that segregation, that became a kind of major theme for the modern painting, and gradually see the postmodern painting. And 1942, Hopper painted the Nighthawks, this one, which is one of the most popular and maybe the best known and most replicated of his paintings. The artwork is a perfect summary of Edward Hopper's art because it represents a scene of ordinary life in a big American city by night. The characters depicted don't communicate, and the artificial light enhances the sense of loneliness permeating the scene. Hopper's paintings are capable of telling stories, although there aren't many elements, inciting the imagination of the viewers who try to think about a scene coming just before or just after the image. Edward Hopper is the first American artist who looked at the banality of ordinary life and made it a masterpiece. It's an office. It's an office, and it's a very ordinary thing, but to the viewers that opens up so many possibilities, visual possibilities, and the stories. Everyone's looking for light, but everyone is separate, sitting there waiting for the sound. Everyone's approach is different, story is different, all are individuals. Everyone seeks light, just like music. Now without people, still our senses exist. Without people remembering just the empty spaces. We have created spaces, actually we have created more empty spaces to understand that vacant space and emptiness. By creating concrete jungle, basically we have discovered our loneliness. Steve. It's a big name, big star. You can hear some song maybe.